Hey, welcome back everybody. This is Dave with Alum House Sound. Today we're going to dive into a live stream setup that we're using at my church. Now, you might have seen previous videos that talk about running a matrix, which I did attempt to do somewhat unsuccessfully at my church. We've got a mix bus setup where we're using an auxiliary send. At one point, I had a full console at my disposal and was able to mix on that before we were back in person. And so there's been a number of previous videos that I've done, but this one is going to be a multi-part series running through the scene that I'm using right now, the one that I am kind of settled on and done tweaking and changing. So today's going to be an overview of that, and then subsequent videos will cover things like the drums or the band or the vocals, things like that, going in depth with the actual effects that I'm using and the compression settings and all of those things that I'm doing to get the sound that we have right now. We have no plugins, we're not running waves, everything is specifically in the console in the X32 or the M32. And so it's something that's attainable by anybody that has this console. It is not what you're gonna get when you've got a $2 million live stream studio. You're running waves, plugins, or anything like that. Again, this is just all native stuff within the X32, within the confines of the effects parameters that we've got, and this is what our church is doing. So maybe if you watch through these series, you might find some tips, some tricks, some ways that you can tweak and refine your setup, and even if you're on another console, you might find some things that you want to try and do with routing or the effects that you've got built in there. So without further ado, let's dive into this overview setup of video number 1, and we will catch you guys at the end. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into our scene here that we're using at my church every week now. This has been an endeavor to build, but we are here, and I just want to go over it real fast and make sure that you've got at least an overview of how this thing is laid out for right now. We will dive in subsequent videos to all of the different details and groups, and that'll give more information and settings and things like that. But our overview is this. From left to right on our inputs, we do have our drums. So now we do have kick, snare top, snare bottom, tom 1, floor tom, and our ride cymbal, or our one overhead mic. Then we have part of our band, so we have bass, electric guitar. We have our acoustic guitar, which we're doubling the acoustic guitar. That gives us more of a stereo guitar sound and a much wider acoustic guitar. If you haven't seen that video, I will link it up here right now, and I'll also put it in the description below that you can check out that trick that I use. We have an extra channel here, auxiliary, which is channel 11. Sometimes if we have trumpet or violin or cello or some other instrument, we do have this extra channel we can plug that into that is pre-wired and pre-set up. Then we have our pastor and our handheld mics. And then here on the far right, we have our singing vocals, so male lead, female lead, and if we had a third background vocal, we've got that preset there. Flipping over to our next layer, we do have pads here. This is stereo pads that come in. We do have a stereo keyboard channel here, and then we also have the capability to have crowd mics. These are not currently wired up, but that is where we would put them if that time arrives. Then on our effects returns, which is our third layer down, we do have our PC that comes in, and this is only impacting what's happening in our room. This is not impacting what's happening in our live stream. Then we have our effects return, so effect 1 here, effect 2, effect 3, and 4. So this is our high top end vocal reverb. Then we have our drum reverb. The third one here, which is kind of colored whitish, maybe pink is what you see on the screen, but it's a white color here. This is kind of the all-around reverb that everybody, band, instruments, and vocals go into. And then the last one here is the return for our vocal delay. Then if we look at our bus sends, the bus master tab here, these are pretty much all right around 0, and that is fine. So we'll go back up here, and then we will check onto the right side of the screen here. So on the right side, we start out with our DCAs. We've got a DCA for our PC input, which is on our third layer. We do have a vocal group, and this is just impacting all three vocals. That just gives us one overall volume. If we like the mix of our vocals, but we want the band to stick out more, we can bring the vocals down a little bit if they're singing some background oohs and ahs. Or if we need the vocals to stand out some, we can bring them up. We have our acoustic guitar. Again, that's just controlling our stereo group. So once we get our level set, then we have one fader to mess with instead of two. We've got a blank DCA here. Then our pads, because our pads are on the second layer, we can mix with pretty much staying on this top layer over here. And then on the right side, we've got our pads, which is a stereo pads, and our keys, which are also on that second layer. We have DCA 7 is blank. And then finally, we've got our delay, and this delay is impacting the bus return. So if we look over here at our effects return, we can select it and see that that's impacting the volume of this return or muting that return. All right, then we're going to hit bus 1 through 8. We've got our in-ear monitors here, and then we have a blank pair of buses here. We don't mess with our monitors. Those musicians all do that with their phone on stage, so that's not a big deal. Buses 9 through 16 become important for us. We do have a band bus, a stereo band bus, so all of our band actually goes through this bus. We'll talk about that in a second. Then we have our stream bus. This is a stereo stream bus, so that's where we build our live stream mix, goes into this bus. Then we have our 4 effects inputs, and this is where we have our input for our vocal reverb. Then we have our input for our drum reverb, input for the entire reverb, and our input for our vocal delay. And finally, on the very last clip here, we've got our matrix, and the only thing we're using down here is this is the actual output for our live stream. This is where the bus that we build comes through here. This before it goes out, this gives us the ability to have a couple extra effects, compressions and such in place to really refine and craft the sound before we send it to our video switcher. All right, enough about the right side. Let's go to the far right side. All right, so we do have our main fader, which typically our main fader is going to be maybe between -8 and -3. If we get up to 0, your vocal mics are going to be feeding back, and I typically run it around -5, and that's fine. We can push enough energy if we adjust low-end things to get the feel of the room to be nice and big. But let's talk about these assignable section here. We'll go into greater detail, but what we do have is first some volumes. These encoder knobs do adjust volume for our first 3 effects. So again, the first one here is going to map. I'll actually bring this up so we can look at it. The first one does map with the vocal, the top end reverb, which is a short, higher, airy reverb. The second one maps with our drum reverb. The third one with our all reverb. And then the fourth one is not a volume because we have the slider, the DCA fader, that is going to be affecting that delay, but it does map in line with all 4 effects here. Then you'll see that we have some mutes down here, 9, 10, 11, and 12. If I push this, you'll see that that mutes, and that's muting the input to our delay. The benefit to having this muting the input to the delay is that if we mute this and the input to our reverb, if we mute this, it doesn't immediately clip off the reverb like it would if we stopped it at the return. This cuts off what's going into the reverb, but it allows that normal tail to happen on the return. So this one is a quick way to mute our reverb there. We have the drum reverb, we have the all reverb, and we have our delay. Now, what you'll notice, if I turn these all off, we have our mute groups. So let's talk about mute groups, and you'll see this impact on the left side there. Mute group 1 is our drums. Mute group 2 is our band, and that will impact the other instruments that are on the second layer. Mute group 3 is our singing vocals. 4 is our pastor and our handheld microphones. 5 doesn't do anything, but 6 impacts these 2 mute groups. You see how these light up also when I hit 6? So mute group 6 is impacting anything that pertains to our vocals that we don't want to have running when they're speaking. So we like having this airiness when they're singing, and we like having the delay when they're singing, but when they come up to welcome and say, hey, good morning, welcome everybody to church, let's go ahead and stand and sing, we don't want to have that with a delay and this super affected reverb on top. It's just going to sound unnatural. So we can quickly hit mute group 6, and that will push those buttons for us no matter where we are. And that's just a quick one touch. We don't even have to touch these over here as the assignable section. We can just hit mute group 6 and it's fine. All right, so what do you need to know for mixing the live stream, or making adjustments while we're mixing the service? It is the same as what we were doing before. So we do have a live stream bus. When we select it and we hit sends on fader, you do have this mix over here on the left-hand side, which is alterations from the house mix that we're sending into the live stream. So that stuff is all the same as it's been. The only difference is where we want to solo. Previously, if we wanted to listen to the live stream, we would solo the live stream here. You could do that. It's just not quite as accurate. We want to come down to the matrix and solo the matrix. That way we can hear the final output in our headphones that's going to our live stream. But when you want to make alterations, you can leave that soloed. You come here, you select bus 11, sends on fader, and that's going to make your alterations for the live stream with the faders and the instrument mix. Now, just in case you want to know this from an overview perspective, I will quickly give you our effects that we're using. So I'm going to go to our effects home, and let's see here. So the first effect in the top left is ambience. Actually, I'll just do this. We're using ambience, and this is for the top airy vocal reverb. So this is a very short reverb that we have. It's not a big room or anything like that. And it's mostly EQ'd to just be a very top high frequency reverb. The next thing we have is our drum verb, also ambience, but this is set considerably different in its approach. And this one is just for the drums. The third one we have is my favorite, the vintage reverb, and this is working for everybody. So this is a much warmer reverb, more of a room sound. This has a mix of every instrument and vocals. Even the pastor and the handheld mic do go through this, and this is used in the room, but it's more specifically for our live stream. And then the last one is my delay and chamber, and this is going to be for the vocals. Again, this is our vocal delay, and it's got some pretty specific settings that I fine-tuned in here for the mix of delay and reverb, and the setup for how it mixes with the other reverbs. Now, then we move on. We've got a couple different things here. So we're using the dual de-esser, and this is one side is on the pastor's mic, one side is on the handheld mic to do just what it's called. It's going to be a de-essing compressor. Then we have the dual Ultimo compressor. This is the 1176 emulation. And one side is for my male lead vocal. The other side is for the female lead vocal. Then effect 7, also another Ultimo compressor. This one's a stereo version. And this is being hit by bus 11 and 12. This is our live stream bus. Does come into this effect, and it's a really great compressor, and I really love how it sounds, and it's doing some great kind of mastering compression for us. And then finally effect 8, and this is where we're hitting the matrix 1 and 2 for our live stream, is hitting this this precision limiter before it goes out. So we're getting some limiting on this live stream output. All right, well, you made it this far in the video. Go ahead and hit the like button. If you've got somebody that you think would benefit from this, feel free to share it with them. And hit the subscribe button. That way you can find out when these other videos come out after this one. So this was the overview of this setup. The next video that we're gonna put out will be about the drums, the drum settings, the drum reverb, and how it all works together. So we'll catch you guys in that one next time.